Okay, thanks very much, Yura, for that. Many things there to pick up on. Congratulations, first of all, to you. Also, yes, let me extend the welcome that Yura made to invitation if anyone wants more advertising, advertising marketing, some practitioners from the industry, Pandora, Google, etc., Empirical IO, all that the next 2 days. And yes, thanks again also for the opportunity to come back to your wonderful country. Enjoyed it very much the first time, and it's lovely to see you again. Plenty more to see and do here. On a more down note, I think I should apologize for the behavior of my compatriots a week ago. I can't believe this was out of ignorance, I think, for the most part. I know there are a lot of idiots in England, but I didn't realize it went to like 50% of the population and above. I think the role of the press needs sort of looking at in that as well. Some interested parties there. And the funding of the press, some particular figures who have particular... Anyway, all right, let's not go there, but not happy. Okay, on a happier note, let me talk today about some media economics themes. This is joint work. I'm going to draw on several strands of joint work, put together several things. In particular, some work with Martin Peitz, who's from the University of Mannheim, and there's a pair from the Bergen Business School listed there, who I've also worked on a couple of these themes with. So let me see what I want to talk about. All right. Okay. This is a bit of a mixed bag of I/O themes, and I guess it's more theory, so there's the apology beforehand. I guess in a sense it's a little bit broader than pure I/O, but it's still sort of micro theory, applied micro theory. So hopefully not too distant from interests. Hopefully there's something there for some of you. We start out with the observation that in the sort of classical or the archetype model of thinking about media economics, we have this result that new entry increases the price of ads. So you actually get this rise in a price when there's new entry. And that we've since ascribed to, we've sort of understood the model more, and we've realized that that has to do with this particular monopoly bottleneck or competitive bottleneck that means there's no direct competition for advertisers. And so our starting point is I want to tell you about that result, where that one comes from, and think about, we sort of stood back and said, well, this is maybe a little bit unusual. Now we understand it better. I want to tell you more about that and take several takes on doing that. One is to put advertising congestion into the media economics model, the idea that people won't necessarily register all the ads to which they're exposed, and that is going to change these results quite radically. Along the way, I'm going to use, or to get to that end, I'll deploy some of the tools of Aggregate of Games. That's due, or initiated by Reinhard Selten, the Nobel Prize winner there. So I'll tell you a bit about that, and then I'll use those tools in order to look at the ad congestion problem, and then look at other possible models of what we call multi-homing viewers, that is, viewers that are looking at several channels on the television, and see how that changes the competitive landscape by introducing the more competition for advertisers. Then lastly, I want to think about putting together both vertical differentiation and horizontal differentiation models of advertisers and viewers in order to endogenously generate scenarios where one or both sides multi-homes. So I realize I have a few terms there to explain as I go through that. That's the sort of background. Now I'll have to start going back and sort of defining what these terms mean. Hopefully that's coming up over the next few slides. So yeah, please feel free to interrupt or clarify, ask me a question about it. I think what's coming up should try and explain what I'm talking about. So if it could need some clarification, that's coming up. Okay. So there's the overview. In terms of where this is coming from, it's based on when I saw the canonical model of media economics, being a little unhumble there. I mean the one I know best anyway, the one that I had with Steve Coate, the media economics model. That's the one we set up. That was sort of the workhorse in the literature for a while. The other themes on which I'll draw to elaborate upon that and extend it are work with Andre De Palma on information congestion, and also something that I'm working on now with Nishvan Erkal, who's in Melbourne. That's on Aggregate of Games, so that's where I'm drawing from here. So in a sense, I want to use the tools of the aggregate of game formation to think about a model of two-sided competition on platforms with advertising congestion. That's the work with Martin Pates. The work with the Norwegians has to do with multi-purchase options and determining sort of how many channels do advertisers want to put ads on, how many channels do viewers want to watch. Okay, so in terms of the outline of topics here, first of all, I'll think about mainly entry and mergers and some potential puzzles that arose once we started thinking about the models more deeply, thinking about, in a sense, that these are somewhat non-intuitive, or maybe do they even fit the data? Then I'll think about, so that's the background, where we're coming from, where we're starting, why we're starting to do this. The toolkit then is looking at aggregate of games. That's the tool set. Those are the conceptual framework that we'll think about using to putting this advertising congestion. I'll do that in two steps. First of all, I'll make sure the consumers are watching channels independent of what ads are on there, so there's no direct competition for viewers. Then I'll endogenize the viewer behavior and look at this full two-sided market. Two-sided market is one of these several terms that I'm going to get to coming up soon. Then we'll think about characterization results, like which media platforms are going to put on more ads, etc. Then we'll get to these other themes, if time permits. We can cut out when we if we don't get there, that's okay. Alternative complementary views are thinking about the multi-homing setup, and then we can think about that being endogenously determined. And then there's hopefully more and more one can think of, but certainly I won't develop all that here. Okay, so where this came from. So the standard media economics model. We have been thinking about channels, so I'm thinking about TV stations, radio stations, newspapers or websites. So this is sort of the moving face of media economics and platforms. They compete at they compete in content, obviously, but they also compete in terms of the ad nuisance that they provide for viewers. So ad nuisance has gone up demonstrably in the US over the years. It's now quite a large fraction of program time on television. People turn off or turn over when they're faced with too many ads. So if you like, or what I shall be doing through this framework, think of the ads, the ad clutter, as sometimes called. Ad clutter is like a price that viewers pay for watching the programming. And so we get this outcome here. Well, if the media companies are competing in this price, the ad clutter, then more entry puts the price down. So entry decreases the amount of advertising. That's something, I'll come back to that. Oh, just like, if you like, if you think about the market for chocolate bars, more people producing chocolate bars depresses the price, more competition, the price goes down. Well, by analogy, if the price of watching television is the number of ads you have to put up with, then entry should put that price down. Okay, that's what's coming out of the model because it's based on this thing. So the prediction entry decreases clutter. Way, way back, I already sort of realized, hang on, something else is going on here. Here's what happened when Fox TV, Fox is Murdoch, right? Shouldn't mention that. That's the word we weren't going to mention. Fox TV came in the US. There's Fox. It's the light blue one. So it entered at this point here, 1989, roughly. What happened, remember the model says ad levels should go down. What happened instead, Fox came in with a higher level of ads than the incumbents were. There's the three incumbents, all interestingly clustered at the same nuisance level. And it sort of led the charge upwards. They all followed upwards. So entry is giving a very opposite answer to what our model was saying. So, okay, let's rethink the model. What's missing in that? Of course, there's a lot of other things going on over the, this isn't the only, at least this caused us to pause and say, hang on, let's think a little bit about the entry. Many other things going on in this time period could explain this, not necessarily the themes that I'm going to do here. But that was the first thing when we realized, oh, let's think a little bit more about this. Okay, what is missing? Well, when we first set up the model of media economics, we assumed, to me naturally, that each consumer makes a discrete choice of which television station to watch. So she'll choose NBC or ABC or CBS, and we could just take off the shelf a standard discrete choice model to describe her choice of which channel to go to. And that was natural. This is my book with André and Jacques, which we'd written, I don't know, 1992 it came out. But in that whole book, it is assumed people make discrete choices. They choose the car or the bus or to walk to work. You choose one thing and not multiple things. And in the whole book, I can't think of any place where we thought multiple choices. And in fact, if we did think of them, they would think, well, it wouldn't actually make much difference. Turns out in media economics, it can make a huge difference if we have consumers who choose more than one channel. So then we have to think about modeling it, et cetera, and what the outcomes are. So that's where I'm going to go. But this is sort of in my defense. Well, it seemed natural at the time, and I didn't think much was hinging on it. So standard discrete choice, you choose one channel. That was in the heart of the model originally. Here's the framework. Here's the two-sided market model. I've mentioned that. You've maybe heard of platform economics. It's gotten very popular in business streets and even Wall Street, business schools and Wall Street. Here's the two-sided market business model as it applies to media economics. Okay, two sides of the market. Let's see, what have we got first? The advertisers on the one hand, two hand, and then we have the platforms in the middle. Okay, there's actually three groups of agents interacting. Two groups, the advertisers and consumers who are interacting via the platforms, which are the TV channels, radio channels, websites, coordinating, actually doing some sort of matching in a sense between the two sides of the market. Okay, so advertisers are here, a set of firms that want to get their message across to consumers, potential consumers of their products. Okay, how do they do that? Well, on the other side, they put on ads, so you probably guessed that. On the other side of the market, there are viewers, individuals who want to consume content. They don't want to consume ads necessarily. They want to consume content. And the content is the vehicle on which the advertiser's message is bundled, and by watching the content, the consumers end up consuming the advertising messages. I think my TA, I don't know if you look carefully, there's a dog in there. My TA put in a dog. I was looking for the Lithuanian audience. I wanted a picture of a hedgehog watching the television, but I couldn't find one of those online. So imagine a hedgehog and not a dog in that position. Okay, there are two sides. So the viewers want to watch content, the advertisers want to talk to them. In the middle are the platforms. These are television stations. And I guess I've got the outside option here, mowing the grass, not watching anything. The money goes from the advertisers to the platforms on which they put ads. And this is a case of, I mentioned the word multihoming. This is this first advertiser, multihoming, putting its ads on two platforms. Multihoming is an unfortunate term. It came out of the ISP context. Multihoming means here sort of more than one channel. Okay, so these guys naturally tend to multi-home. This one is on 3 channels. That's also multi-homing. On the other side of the market, we have attention from the hedgehog being paid to, it's going to choose, like a discrete choice model, which channel to watch. And this hedgehog is only watching one channel, so that's single homing. And we assumed in the original stuff, all of the consumers will choose one channel or another, taking into account the price, which is the ad nuisance, which is the number of these other guys on that channel. And we can have quality provision by these channels in the middle, etc., etc. That, in a sense, that there's a lot of other stuff going on, like creation of content and ISP providers. And anyway, this is the basic part that we'll look at and scrutinize, this market interaction between these agents. And there it is. The dollars go back the other way. The consumers, once they've, the conduit for the ads is through the TV programming. This guy here has seen Fox, therefore he's seen the Coca-Cola ad, or with some probability he's seen that. And then he may be motivated to buy more Coca-Cola, and the money then goes back towards the advertisers. That's why they want to make the communication. Okay, so that's the two-sided business model. Here it is without the pictures. I guess advertiser 1, 2, 3, 4, viewers, platforms. Platform 0 is the outside option. Dollars going from advertisers to have their ads on. 1, 2, attention coming back the other way. And then when the viewer sees something, she might change her behavior and buy it. The money goes back that way, which finances the programming content in the middle. That's the two sides, and the platforms coordinating. Well, I haven't shown you the coordination, but that's what's going to be happening. We have to think about how many ads we want to put on. Yeah. It is something that we'll suppress here, but you can indeed render endogenous the quality content. So I agree with you, that's sort of missing in my description of it so far. But in a sense, that's not very central to the point at the moment. But you would indeed think that channels that have high quality would be able to carry many ads because they're going to be attracting many viewers. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you think that there should be the fourth player?
There should be many more players in this, I agree.
TV services.
What?
Companies that provide TV services with different
Yes. So the whole downstream part about cable bundling packages, very important in the US of late. That's missing from this. One can think of multi-sided platforms where you have other agents interacting. It doesn't address the corners, but let me stick with this one. Just to say on the credit cards.
What I meant, because I'm not sure. If in initial explanation that you gave, the viewers are selected into one platform.
Yes.
And let's say that's the modeling assumption, that's the truth. Then advertiser, if he wants to access all the market, he has to deal with all platforms.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah. Not access full consumers set.
Right.
And that has some implications to pricing and.
A lot of implications. We'll see that.
Whereas there could be some packaging company who says, as an advertiser, I provide you access to any platform, so you don't have to deal with differentiated selling of platform access.
So I think the point there that I'm going to make about multi-homing, I see more where yours fits in now. That's also going to have implications for what we get out of this. So in a sense, we're saying something is, I don't know, missing out. The simplest way of thinking about what might be missing is to allow for attention on multiple links. And that will be a shorthand version, perhaps, of looking at what you perhaps are after there. That channel will induce the sort of effects that I'm going to be expounding here. All right, so how it works here on. Single homing, as we've just said, single homing. Viewers are assumed to watch one channel. If you take off the shelf a standard discrete choice model, there's the utility for individual J watching channel I. There's a quality for Viva, if you like, VIJ. The important thing here, the price, is the gamma is the nuisance cost per ad, and then AI is the number of ads. So more ads, the more you are. You're not getting your content. It's the idea that you would prefer another 10 minutes of Desperate Housewives to another 10 minutes of ads or whatever. And the nuisance cost is gamma on those things. This will give you, so that generates a demand side. NI is the number of individuals on channel I, depending on the ad levels and the qualities, but I've suppressed them here. I could say that, by the way, I'm going to assume that all of the viewers here are equally valuable to advertisers. I know that's not true, and I know other people have worked on targeting. Still more to be done there. But for the moment, start out, I want to keep it simple, start out with the even uniformity assumption here. Advertiser, so that was the viewer side. Now I have to model the actions of all these agents that are interacting. That was the viewers. Now's the advertisers. Next are the platforms. Platforms maximize profits, I can tell you that much. Okay. Advertisers, what do they want to do? They want to make communications. They want to talk to the viewers here. What I can do, simply enough, is just to rank advertisers from the highest, create a demand curve, rank from highest to lowest willingness to pay for making an impression on the other side of the market. And then, with single homing viewers, we're going to get the only, I think someone mentioned this just came up in the discussion, the only way of making a communication with someone who's chosen CBS is to put an ad on CBS. And that's what I referred to earlier as this competitive bottleneck, that there's only, the channel has monopoly access to its consumers, and that's what's going to drive these results in the original one. Advertisers are going to multi-home because if you want to talk to more than the CBS viewers, you've got to put an ad somewhere else as well. What are you going to do economically? Worth at least PI per viewer. So if your demand price, your reservation value, is larger than the price you are going to be charged for it. That's going to tell you what you're going to do, yes or no. There's the demand curve again, written out in principal style. Number of advertisers ranked from high to low. And if, for example, a price of P tilde were set, or were the price per ad per consumer, then the first A tilde advertisers would say, yes, we want to buy an ad on that channel. And they'll do so for all the channels, given the single homing thing and this bottleneck, for every channel for which their demand price is bigger than the price per ad per consumer charged. And then that means that this is the classic revenue box, price times quantity. This is important because this is the dollars per consumer that the channel can get out of the other side of the market, i.e. the advertisers, for each consumer it delivers. So I've got dollars from one side of the market. That's the sort of economic incentive that's going to drive getting the consumers. Okay, and channels now lastly. If we think about these guys, they're going to maximize profits. And just a brief step back and say, hang on, this is a little bit more intricate than we might have thought before you see through it. The first thing you might write down is profit should depend on my ad levels, everyone else's. Should be just the number of ads times the price. This is a big P. Watch out, I changed that. The price per ad times the total price of an ad. That number is going to be total advertising revenue, which is going to be the profits, holding aside the cost of producing the programming, so holding off the quality. And you can stare at that and think, okay, what are we going to do next with that? And the answer is, thinking back to the last slide we had, unbundle it and rebundle it. So I want to somehow get a decision out of this and a game out of this. If I write my single homing viewers, the number of viewers on channel I, depends on the ad levels, then I can break down the profits into so the price per ad is the price per ad per consumer times the number of consumers, and then I put together ad levels and price. That's that little brown box we had just now. Revenue per consumer that you've got times the number of consumers. Now I'm in a situation where I can easily write down, I can solve this game, or I can think about solving ad levels out of this. The timing is going to be the platforms are going to choose their ad levels, and the viewers choose what to watch, advertisers choose where to put their ads. And I'm going to get a game of my equilibrium predictions. And then, whoops, unfortunately after all that, something goes wrong with that Fox News story. Yeah. No. Ah, right. So yes. Yes, you're right, I've got these linear nuisance costs, but you're right, that would give you a possibility that the channel is all ads, which infomercials are an example, but I'm thinking of things as being sort of at the lower end of, yeah. Okay, so we just boiled this thing down to profits are revenue per consumer you deliver that you charge the advertisers times the number of consumers you get. If you take logs and take the derivative, you get this, what I call the two-sided market balance condition. The if I multiply through by A's, I've got the elasticity of revenue and the elasticity of viewer demand. Those things are equalized, characterizing the optimal solution. We can show, without going into the details here, the result I claimed. If the number of competing firms goes up, then the number of ads actually goes up. No, sorry, down. Down. That was the key thing. That was key. So that's the puzzle we're going to be addressing. The number of ads goes down, and we saw with Fox actually it went the other direction. And that's because, like the chocolate bars, more nuisance, so more competition means lower price, fewer ads. So on from this one. The intuition for the comparative statics, the first point there is, yes, it's like the chocolate bar story. We set up the model, we're going to get that answer out. More entry means more competition, and therefore less nuisance delivered, lower ads levels. So the nuisance goes down, which means, though, going back up the demand curve, if the ad level has gone down, the price actually goes up. Price per ad per consumer. So that movement, that's one puzzle. It seems that, okay, you've got entry and the price actually goes up. So we have to be careful in these two-sided markets because there's these two groups of agents interacting. What may be intuitive on one side, I mean, the first story sounded quite compelling to me, now is going to lead to more strange-sounding implications on the other side of the market, but that, in a sense, is natural in the context of a two-sided market. So that's the first point we have there. We can also think instead about mergers. Loosely, that's like the opposite effect of entry. If we have a merger, what are you going to do? Well, in this context, you're going to think about, you're going to raise the price, like you merger in the chocolate bar industry. Your own ad levels go up, and then your rivals' ad levels are going to go up with them. Okay, you can put on more ad levels because you internalize the effect between the two competing platforms that you now own. Okay, the evidence on that one is mixed, but still it gives us some cause to think, well, is this really what happens? In particular, the merger has this unusual effect here. The merger causes a decrease in one of the prices. It's caused an increase in one, but it's caused a decrease in the other one because of the two-sided market interaction. Let's think about this particular set of tools here, aggregate of games. An aggregate of game is a simplification of the oligopoly problem, whereby the profit of an individual agent depends only on his or her own action, or some mathematical transformation thereof, and the sum of these actions. And the canonical example that you probably are aware of without knowing it is Cournot competition. Your profit depends on your output and the aggregate output. It doesn't matter who created what, it's just the aggregate. So these things are very useful. That's going to be something that we can follow and engage on this set of games here. Okay, so let's suppose we have a game of this type, and we'll show the advertising congestion one is one such. The profit, assume it's decreasing in this aggregative variable, like the total quantity for the Cournot case. This actually extends to models like CES and Logit, so looks unfamiliar, but it actually covers quite a lot of stuff. And in a sense, this simple structure means or will imply that why we get results out of these games is because they do have this simple structure. What it does is boil down the oligopoly problem, which is a priori complicated because it deals with n firms all interacting. Well, it boils it down to 2 dimensions. So this is why you get very clean and quick results out of these things. Okay, so this is the toolkit. If we take the first order condition, the point is this depends only on my action and the aggregator, so I can write this thing out as the cumulative best reply, my action as depending on the total. Caveat, this is not the normal way we think about best replies. This was Selton's innovation to think mathematically this is actually very natural. It's not quite the way Cournot configured it. But with this tool, we can work out some answers now to what equilibrium will look like. In particular, this thing is going to slope up in the context I'm going to look at, which is going to be strategic complementarity, which is if the aggregator goes up, then each individual's action is going to go up with it. The reason Selton introduced this originally was because equilibrium is a simple fixed point. If I sum up the individual actions as a function of the aggregate, then when they equal the aggregate, I have my equilibrium. Pictures coming up for this in a moment. In particular, there we go. Here's my action as a function of the aggregate. One firm's action as a function of the total, another firm's. If I add them together, then the equilibrium condition is such. The intersection, there we go. That's what the equilibrium level looks like. So I can read off from this. In particular, I know the aggregate, I know this firm's action, I know this agent's action right off this graph, and I can do comparative statics, all very simple and clean. As I said, a very complicated problem can boil down with this tool. Characterization, if I'm a more aggressive player, so think opposite of merger, for example, that's what's coming up, then those players have higher actions in equilibrium. As I said, the comparative statics are straightforward. Okay, so here we have our equilibrium condition. Again, let's make player 2 more aggressive. That's going to increase its marginal incentive. There she's increased to the blue line. The total sum goes up, therefore, and so the total in the market goes up. And we can read off what the other agent's going to do. She's also going to do more by, that's the strategic complementarity, upward sloping reaction function property. Okay, there's the new equilibrium. I just mentioned what those comparative static properties are. I'm going to now think about merger or cooperation with the quick point that if I think of a firm or a platform that has merged platforms I and J, the old first order condition was just platform I. Now it knows that if it increase its action on platform I, it's going to hurt its sibling product there. This is going to cause it to be less aggressive. So its reaction function is going to go down, the opposite of the case we just had. Let's move that ahead. Well, I've got another ad break, but I don't think we shall show that. You'll have to come back another time and see that one. It's a parody of the first one, but it's got 2 guys drinking a Belgian beer. Anyway, sorry. You can look it up if you want to. Probably find it on YouTube. Okay, so that was advertising. Another slight change of direction. What I want to do is think about advertising congestion and now engage that into the model we just had. In particular, we've worked, so my work with De Palma, we thought about information congestion in a couple of papers, a few themes on that. The idea is here by Herb Simon, if you've got a lot of messages coming in, then that's eating up your attention span and causing a drain on your own resources in dealing with them. That's what we called here, well, we didn't come up with the term information overload, but the idea there is too many messages trying to get in. The consumer is going to do stuff like creates a poverty of attention. You screen it out. You don't get all the messages in if there's too many messages trying to compete for your attention. I remember way back on the London Underground, this must be 20, 25 years ago, there was an ad that said, you will remember only one of the 365 messages or ads you see today. And funnily, that was the one I actually remembered. But this number, how many messages do you see a day? I've seen numbers, estimates up to 5,000, which seems a bit too high. You've just seen one today for Carlton beer. But there's more out there. So one estimate is this huge number. The idea, though, is there's a very large number of potential messages out there vying for attention. This is the competition for attention idea. Simplest way of modeling it is to think, well, there's a fixed sort of attention span, fixed number of messages that I can process in a day, and then if I receive more messages than that, there's only a probability that anyone is actually registered. So if I receive A messages, then the probability of recalling anyone is phi over A, the pipe divided by the number vying. All right, how does this feed through for, there's my confused consumer. He or she is in Hong Kong. There's a lot of messages. You drive down the street there, there's messages everywhere. Okay. So again, advertisers, we just rank these guys in terms of willingness to pay. The willingness to pay is PA if you make contact, if you break into the attention span. If we have congestion, therefore, it's your demand price for reaching the consumer times the probability you reach her, given she's receiving big A ads in total. Okay. The technical, everything is well behaved. Let's move that along and let's say, okay, with that as a background, let's first suppose that the number of viewers is fixed on each channel, and then we'll worry about competition in ad nuisance next. These channels then, the CBS, NBC, etc., are delivering maybe ad neutral consumers. Suppose that's one way of holding them off the table. The viewer is going to get this number of ads, which is the probability she's on the channel, times the number of ads on it, which is going to give us our profit here. And the key, the link back to what I just did was this is an aggregative game, because if I think of big A as the sum of these actions, little a, lambda A, I've got a profit function that depends just on my action and the aggregate, which is the sum of everyone's action. So this aggregative variable here is the ad times market share. And then I can just go back to the analysis we just had from aggregative games and figure out what the equilibrium looks like and tell us what the upshot is for media economics, which was the ultimate aim. Okay, so we don't need to know about that, I don't think. You can write down the profit on the top, as I said. You can work out the cumulative best reply. Actually, let's just think about the economics here. There's the one intuition for what's going on here. Bigger platforms, those with higher qualities, are going to show fewer ads in this context because of this congestion effect. They are, if they're larger, a larger footprint in the total market, then that means that they are more worried about putting on an extra ad, because that's going to lose them more, because they have more at stake there. So bigger platforms sort of internalize more the ad congestion. They are going to cause less congestion. Yeah. Lambda is exogenous at the moment, and it's going to be chosen next. Yeah. So that's what congestion looks like. Little firms are the bad guys here. They're going to congest a lot. They don't care that much, because a lot of the congestion effect, the bad effect they're causing, is going to happen on everybody else. So that's the sort of common property resource externality that this engenders. Now let's think about entry. Suppose we have a new entrant, and the simple point is, let's suppose either it takes up people who were mowing the grass or doing something else now, or indeed this could have been from a symmetric situation. If we have entry, it's like I get another one of these reaction functions and the total goes up. So the aggregate goes up. That means the total amount of ads received by the consumer is going to go up. The upward sloping property means everybody else's actions are going to rise, which means that there are going to be more ads, because if there's more firms in there, each individual firm is less motivated at the margin to care about economizing or husbanding its advertising because someone else is suffering. Well, you're suffering, but to a lesser extent now as a fraction of the total. Okay, what does that mean then for the ad levels? It means that other people's ads rise, total ad levels go up, so entry causes an increase in ads. And think back, that was what we had in the Fox News story early. So contrast with the earlier story, we had the opposite effect. So putting in this congestion effect is one way of getting now something that would track the data a little bit better. Okay, we'll be a bit more explicit on that in a moment. We can also think about media mergers. If we have a merger, basically we go the opposite direction. Some firms, when they merge, get less aggressive. Their reaction functions come back. The aggregator goes down. This means these guys are going to advertise less. Why? Because now they care more about putting on an extra ad because they've got not only their first program to worry about, but this increases congestion on the second program. So again, common property resource. If you have a bigger stake in it, which you do with merger, you economize more, you husband, you restrain the level of advertising. Okay, so that means that as you might expect, the merger now raises the price per ad per viewer because the advertising level have actually gone down. So there's the price going up with the merger, which we didn't have before. So as it says below, contrast with what we had before. Okay. If we can think about, instead of having these viewers totally endogenous and exogenous here, we can generate similar results out of a setup where consumers choose how much time to watch television. And suppose a viewer's utility, she has there's the quality variable, that's what the little s is. Otherwise, let's say 1 minus a is the fraction of the hour that is devoted to program content. So 1 minus a is sort of content time, a is the ad time. So then quality times the amount of minutes you're getting per hour on it. Now let's suppose you devote lambda j minutes to that, and then we just sum up with a sort of fairly classical utility function and have consumers choose how much time to spend on each channel. Okay, when we do that, we get a demand function here. It's sort of set up in a way that we get a aggregate action variable, and so we can deploy again an aggregative game and get the results that are going to. That's how we put in the choice of how much time to spend. The results are going to be the same, basically. What this says is, basically, we get the same sort of story that I just told you, although now a little bit more satisfactory, because I got a full two-sided market. The consumers are actually reacting to the number of ads. Let me skip the extra stuff there. Results, there's a bit of a summary. Better platforms carry fewer ads because they internalize more of the congestion. There's some things I've been thinking about recently, which maybe are worth airing. If we think about, let's say, the internet recently, we've had a proliferation of platforms. There's lots more sources and places where you can get information. There's many, many more channels available. Part of the FCC's what is one of the things which it's empowered to do, or it's very interested in, is creating the diversity of voices. The Federal Communications Commission in the US. They want to see diversity of voices, a lot of opinions. They're worried about media being too tightly held, so they think more options are better. And normally in economics, we think more options are better. This is an unusual case here, because when we have more options, suppose the price of communicating goes down, yes, we're going to get more channels, but indeed what happens is each channel is going to put on more ads to finance itself because of the congestion effect. So the quality of any individual channel goes down. So it's like you have entry, you have more choice, but you're facing a higher price because each channel is now less attractive. So you've got a trade-off for the consumer between these two effects, the variety effect and the price effect. Is this good in net? Well, actually, it's possible that if we have too many low-quality channels entering, that's going to spoil the quality of the good guys and make the overall thing worse off. Okay, so that's possible. And then if you think about the advertisers, because we're putting on more advertisements, the quality of the advertisements, so you're going further down the demand curve. You're getting worse and worse advertisers built into the mix that's now congesting everybody. So their total surplus on that part of the ledger also goes down. Okay, so I don't want to be arguing against diversity of voices, but there's a bit of a caveat here that, too many tripey magazines are going to be maybe not good overall. That's going to spoil the quality of the overall pot. Okay, and just think about, well, another point we might think about is the quality of the offerings that are going to be delivered. If you've got a lot of small channels contending, then they've got a small footprint, and therefore they've got a relatively small incentive to actually increase quality. So this may be I don't want to say there may be a race to the bottom. At least it's worth considering more in terms of quality getting worse, both by content quality going down and by the incentive to put on ads going up. So diversity of voices, we should be a little bit more careful. Of course, there are also political externalities of having a lot of potential viewpoints. So a little bit of a delicate issue there. That was an experience a while ago. I didn't like what Hertz was doing, but that's another story. There's no ad that goes with that. That was just a negative for Euro, so negative ad break there. Let me do one more set of possibilities. Another potentially complementary way of thinking about competition for advertisers is the following. So if we think about consumers who are multi-homing, then we have to think about them choosing different platforms or subsets of platforms to go on. And this is some work that's been done by Susan. This team was from Harvard, at least half of them, etc. So at least some clever people have been trying to think about these issues, along with myself and the Norwegians. All right, here's our version. Let's suppose now, very simple, I'm going to keep these things exogenous for the beginning. The focus is going to be on the value of consumers who are exclusively delivered by a platform, and that was all there were in the original single homing version. You had this competitive bottleneck problem, hence the monopoly over pricing. Now let's suppose, though, that a platform has, there's only going to be two platforms. Let's call them Time and Newsweek. RJ exclusive viewers, RC common viewers. The common viewers are common readers are those who read both Time and Newsweek. And we want to think about competition in the ads market. Okay, fixed number of homogeneous advertisers. Let's just fix those and say they have a willingness to pay of $B per unique viewer that they deliver. And now let's think about competition in the market for selling these eyeballs. Okay, then the point here, this is the thing we call incremental pricing. You can only charge, I'll make the assumption that a second impression is worth nothing. That's for simplicity here. Second impression is worth nothing. That means you can only charge, if you're Time or Newsweek, you can only charge the value B on your exclusives, because the common viewers are worth nothing incrementally. So if an advertiser's put his ad, Visa's put her ad in Time, then Newsweek can't charge for the people who are reading Time and Newsweek because they've already seen the advert in the other channel. You can only charge the incremental price, the value of the extra benefits that you give that the other guy can't do. And that's the value of your exclusive consumers. Okay, so there's the incremental pricing policy. Let's see how that works with entry and with merger. Here they go, Venn diagrams. All right, little pictures of scrambled eggs, not scrambled, fried eggs. There we go. Oh, there's my daughter complaining about this horrible demand assumption. So I had this beautiful downward sloping demand curve here. Now I've fixed it and I've got it fixed. So entry, Time and Newsweek. So this actually, in the interim, since we first put this picture, I think Newsweek got out of the print market and went only online. I think it's now come back. So things have changed. It's sort of back to where I was. Time can charge. There's the overlapped consumers. They can't charge for those because each advertiser is getting those on the other channel. You can only charge to what's exclusive to you. That means these guys here, Time can charge sort of R1 minus this R12. Now, think about an entrant coming into the market. There she goes, Business Week. What's happened here is now Business Week, at least in this version, has taken, some people now here have these in common. The point is that Time's overall base has gone down. So therefore, the price of an ad on Time, because it's got fewer exclusive consumers, goes down. Again, opposite to the story we had at the beginning. Once we put sort of full focus, put the spotlight on this exclusivity versus common consumers. And arguably some of these consumers might go there as well, which will be a further diminution of the base of of Time. Okay, so entry has, well, as an effect you might expect, but was not coming to us out of the other way of looking at things. After entry, then the advertising price goes down here. Okay, we could do the merger. What happens here? Before merger, Time is charging sort of based on this consumer base times the value of an ad. After merger, they can now charge also for the exclusives, because the only way of getting to someone reading Time or Newsweek is to go through one of them at least. And so they can charge the full amount on that jointly delivered impression. Okay. So after merger, what happens? The price of ads goes up. What does this mean if we think about program choice? Well, haven't gone very far with this, but at least the incentive now for magazines, websites, etc., they don't care much about delivering consumers that other channels can deliver. So that doesn't factor into their choice of the type of content to deliver. They want to do whatever it takes to get exclusive consumers, which suggests they maybe are going to want to be rather niche-y, I guess, rather specialist in their outlook to get those niche type exclusive consumers, because that's where the money is. Empirical. So a student of mine just defended the thesis 2 days ago, who's looked at US magazines and looked at the value of exclusive versus common consumers, overlap consumers. And the value of the exclusives was 12 cents per page per ad per year, and the value of the overlap consumers was 5 cents. So at least first empirical evidence that there can be substantially different demand prices for exclusives versus commonly delivered consumers. And that's coming through this ad price effect. So let me not do that. Here's my co-authors from Norway. Just briefly. They quarrel about who is whom. They both want to be this guy with the short horn, I think. So the model now, I've sort of wanted to do this, wanted to get this working, is to think about each side of the market endogenously choosing which fraction of them is going to be single homing or multi-homing. What we did was to think a situation like this, to think about, following from incremental pricing, think about the incremental utility. If you're buying Time, you would also buy Newsweek if your extra utility exceeds the price. And so what that's going to do is generate a segment in the middle of these multi-homing consumers. That's going to depend upon what the ad levels are at each one of them. And I've got my breakdown of demand. These guys are exclusives to time. They're worth more when they sell them in the advertising market. That's still going to be true. These ones are worth less, but we can allow them to be worth something. In fact, they will at the moment. And then these guys here go into Newsweek exclusively. And so as the advertising levels vary, that's what's in here, then these cut-off consumers vary. So that's one side of the two-sided market. These are more complex than one-sided markets. I've got to have the other side doing something analogous. And on the other side of the market, off the shelf, this is the Musa-Rosen model you may have come across. There we have vertical differentiation. Again, the canonical one that's usually seen is utility is some theta, that's the individual here advertisers value, and Ri is going to be the viewer base. So the idea of the downward sloping demand for advertisers is going to be these different thetas. So some advertisers, it's worth more for them, more for the mortgage refinance guy to contact a viewer than it is for the steak knife seller, whatever. Okay, and then minus the price of putting in the ad. That would give us, if you had to put just one ad, if you were just allowed to put an ad on one channel, the highest willingness to pay fellas would put their ad on the channel with the most viewers, which would be priced accordingly high. Okay, and then there's some people at the bottom. So we do something analogous to what we just did, and we think about multi-homing now. Again, the principle that's driving it is going to be, well, there's your utility. If you put an ad on just one channel, you get, on one channel, you get the exclusives there and the common ones. And so the choice whether to put the ad on the other channel is the incremental value, which is you just get the exclusives on the other channel, which means you have something like that. You pay the price twice. You're, in a sense, paying twice for these common viewers. Okay, and we can follow through, figure out what the model is. The upshot, well, we can get both of these situations. You can get always multi-homing advertisers. Some of them always go in both places. And the consumers, though, can either single home or multi-home, depending on the parameter values. All right, now we're being truthful and honest. This is really along the lines of the sort of model I really wanted to do, and I've got both sides endogenously acting and interacting, but it's quite intractable so far. We got some answers out of it, but it's not quite delivering as much as I would have liked. So with that, let me, well, there are some results and we're still working on it, but that's, you know, I really like the framework. It's quite tricky though. So takeaways, I think I should just say what we've got from this. What we did here was, well, I guess we started out with the puzzles, suggesting that the standard models would give us predictions which may not be in line with all of the observed facts. Then I used this device, the Aggregate of Game, which I recommend as a simplification. It applies to many games, not all. We use that to look at ad congestion and media economics, this two-sided market situation, with ultimately endogenous viewer choices too. And with that, we ended up with predictions which went opposite directions from the original situation. Well, there's a lot of possible other things to talk about here. The incentive is to look for exclusive viewers, so the content bias is to look or to focus on getting as many exclusives as you can. A few more takeaways, what we need to do, think more about overlap, get these other models working, get a larger picture. Let me just, media bias. So there's a whole area of economics, of media economics to do with media bias, Jenskau, Shapiro, etc. I guess I very vaguely broached it here in terms of content provision, but these sort of deeper questions have to do with things like what role did it have in Brexit, I guess. So, yeah, potentially a large role there. Let me stop that at that point. Thank you for your patience just before the lunch.
Suggestion way for extension, because I suspect that you assume that advertisers don't compete in the retail market? Just people are like global
You suspect
monopolies?
correctly. Yes, yes, yes.
And
Yes.
like if the product has substitutes, I mean, just might be a suggestion for a newspaper. If the product has substitutes and advertisers advertise more, because you see consumers pay less attention, they see products more closer substitutes, they are becoming more and more homogeneous, which leads to marginal cost pricing almost, and then that's why the value for advertiser of an ad also goes down. So then I don't know if that effect could overtake the effect that you found. Maybe it would be much weaker. I don't know, or it depends how substitutable products are.
I like, no, you're right, that's nice. With Andre, we did look at, in the congestion context, the information overload. What if you have multiple sectors competing for attention and then competition within a sector? So we started down that research agenda. Yeah. Well, I guess it's an art to make it quite transparent. So that is manageable. That's nice. The other step, though, what does this imply about media economics and the two-sided market, is one we haven't taken. So it's interesting that you have an idea where that might actually lead us.
I just guess.
No. That's a good start. Yes. Thanks for that. Yura.
I'm going to try to bring you back to empirics. So, and just want to see have you thought about this. So, what we observe in the United States is that for about 30 minutes of the content, we have about 8 minutes of ads, and that's pretty constant across the providers and platforms. Should I be thinking? I haven't thought much about it. Should I be thinking of this as the sort of equilibrium that the industry has arrived, or this is more like a test illusion? Have you thought about that aspect? Why 8 minutes?
Well, the figure right at the beginning suggests that actually, I think there was 7 minutes there, but that was per hour. Way back. I won't go all the way back up there, but that was a number which was. So yes, and it's risen a lot, and so there's a debate. Why has it risen a lot? And it's partly Fox News came in, partly there's new entry. There's more competition from the internet, etc. But you might think that should actually go the other way. The concern is, yes, it's about up to 20 minutes sometimes. I think the Howard Stern show reached 27 minutes ad nuisance in an hour. Not sure to what extent it may have stabilized, but yeah, what you say sounds resonates well. Is it collusive? Well, that was a question. Actually, that was a question vis-a-vis the original data I put up, that if they were colluding, you would expect, Fox News, maybe that should cause them to not be able to collude. But what happened, though, the ad levels went up. So that actually might be consistent with the collusion being broken from the 1988 period, if you believe in the other slew of models that I get and sort of move away from the original one. Yeah.
How do you think about the impact of outside option on quality of programs? By outside option, I mean access to, let's say, subscription-based advertisement-free content, or alternative would be internet, like YouTube content. I would imagine the quality of programming would go down as there's more of these outside options available. Maybe that explains that minutes per hour don't go down because you compete for fewer customers.
Yes, you might think about content that is provided both in ad-free version and in the ad version. And so then you have a situation of, you can think about that classically like a second-degree price discrimination story. Now a firm, if it's able to segment the market like that, it may actually get more profit out of the market, and insofar as it gets more marginal profit too, then that might be an incentive actually for the quality provision to go up, because now you get two takes at the market with separating the consumers. That also, I think, leads back a little bit to Yura's question as well, that once you have price discrimination in that sense, once you have people who are able to get outside options, the people who are really annoyed by ads are going to be the ones that are going to either buy out, and that's the price discrimination version, or they get a TiVo machine and they strip the ads out, or they pick it up somewhere else, or both. But those are the guys that are going to leave the market. What's going to happen then, and there's maybe the other answer to you, is that the people who are left are revealed to be a sort of endogenously determined to be less ad sensitive. So what happens? You put up the number of ads that they get. So that might be another story why we've come up to a new level where you've got a consumer base that has revealed that it's less sensitive to ads, and so we can put more ads down the pipe. So that would be another story. Why they went, so there's collusion story, there's entry story, and then there's this new technology story, people stripping them out, and selection away from the more sensitive consumers, putting up ad levels. Thanks.
Great. Let's thank Simon for this insightful keynote speech.